If there was ever an example of a candidate trying to prove you can, in fact, balance the environment and the economy, one of the Prime Minister's favorite catchphrases, it is undoubtedly Terry Beach. Elected in a riding that is the epicenter of the pipeline debate in this country. When Beach was elected here 4 years ago, the expansion of the Trans Mountain Pipeline was already contentious. But now, after one mandate, Beach finds himself not only having to defend the government's approval of the pipeline, but also its decision to purchase it outright. This in spite of the fact that Beach knows most of his riding is against the project, and he did his best to stop it from happening.
It's an interesting position to be in, right? To be one of two members of parliament that voted against a project and voted against your government. It's not the first time that I voted against the party. I mean, at the end of the day, the Prime Minister wants us to represent the views of our constituents.
The original pipeline already runs right through the riding of Burnaby North Seymour, but this twinning of the pipeline would triple the capacity to 890,000 barrels of oil a day. It would mean 14 more storage tanks to hold the oil, more tankers to transport it, and some say increased risk for residents of Burnaby Mountain. John Clark lives just down the road from the tank farm now.
I'm a very independent citizen, and I have the misfortune of living very close to this tank farm. And it was not until I started doing research that I found just how dangerous living here really is.
There have been spills, the vast majority of them limited to small pumping stations, but there have been some significant ones too, like this major spill that took a year to clean up in Burnaby itself. Clark voted for Beach in 2015, but now...
I am very proud to be a Canadian, but I am not very proud right now when I see what our government is getting away with. I feel incredibly betrayed by the Liberal Party.
From the very beginning, the Prime Minister has tried to reassure people with those fears when the Liberals first approved the project back in 2016.
If I thought this project was unsafe for the BC coast, I would reject it. This is a decision based on rigorous debate, on science, and on evidence.
But turns out that was not enough. Parts of a vast consultation process were ordered redone by the Federal Court of Appeal. More meaningful dialogue with First Nations communities and more review of the potential impact on the marine environment of BC's Lower Mainland. That court challenge and the uncertainty around the project forced Kinder Morgan to walk away and the federal government to pony up $4.5 billion of taxpayer money to buy the project, to redo the consultations, then yes, to greenlight it once again.
We need to create wealth today so we can invest in the future.
Well, much has been done to try and deal with all the concerns, including meeting more than 150 conditions initially put in place by the National Energy Board and tens of millions of dollars to improve oil spill response times.
Right up there. We live right up there.
Those who live a little further up Burnaby Mountain in a residential development called Universe City, not far from the tank farm, with a single access point in and out, say they fear how they could safely get out if something were to happen.
The tank farm with all that stored oil is just a kilometer down the mountain. Some residences up here. Over here is the elementary school.
Carl Perrin and his wife, Ann Jarrell, are part of the now well-established protest movement against the pipeline, a cause they seem to have lost, but are unwilling to give up because they believe they have the majority on their side. Carl and Ann were fans of Terry Beach as a Liberal, but even his surprising move to vote against his own government was not enough to win them over.
Initially, I was very impressed because he showed up at all the meetings. He took voluminous notes and everything. But then he's just caved in on the issue. And I don't feel that he's representing us at all.
But Beach would argue he is, in fact, one of them. He grew up on this mountain, went to Simon Fraser University, still lives nearby.
This is where I used to live. So Ravi and I, when we got married, this was our first place, Kensington Gardens. And that sushi town was like my go-to spot. In fact, they were the first people that put a sign up in their business for me in the last election. And they were the first person to put a sign in their business for me this election.
Mostly, he says he has done his best to balance the concerns of his constituents with his responsibilities as an MP in government. In many ways, he embodies that tightrope walk the Liberals have been trying to maintain for 4 years. That balancing act is sometimes bolder than expected, and where Beach wants to go next might prove that.
So we're just in front of the gate. This is in front of the tank farm. We're on top of Burnaby Mountain. A lot of people come here. It was, on the news a lot to get arrested.
Camp Cloud is the name protesters gave to the temporary campsite at the gate of the tank farm, a site of many protests over the past 4 years, and at one point, a shantytown in place for 9 months that was eventually pulled down by police and resulted in arrests. Protesters can still make their way here, but their presence cannot be permanent. A short walk from there, Beach points out the watch station.
So this is the watch house. It doesn't appear like there's anybody here right now, but this was set up. This has been set up for the last couple of years. Right? You asked before, actually, in the car about whether or not there's tension. I'm sure there could be if people weren't being listened to. But I've been to so many protests, talking to everybody. It's been a while since I've heard of a new issue that has surprised me.
It's this attempt to listen and to reflect concerns that has kept some people here firmly on Beach's side.
We'll hit the trail, head down to the beach.
Rob Piefko lives at the end of the pipeline by the marine terminal where tanker traffic is expected to increase.
I will support Terry because he can actually do something. Being part of the government that's in power currently, then he can actually maybe call, for example, a resource minister or someone and say, look, the community is complaining about these kind of issues.
That is what Beach is counting on as he goes door to door with a slightly different message than the last time he campaigned. This time, it's on a record and a decision he didn't even support.
I don't know how everybody's going to vote, but I always want to vote for the person that shows up, does the job, does the hard work. There's a lot of people saying what they might do in the future, but we've been dealing with this for 4 years, and I'm really proud of my record in representing our community.
Hi, my name is Heather. I'm a volunteer with Terry Beach. How are you today?
The challenge, of course, is not just getting himself reelected, but getting the community to believe the Liberal Party also represents this riding. That efforts to fight climate change, to transition the country away from fossil fuels and to green technology can somehow coexist with a government that also approved and purchased a pipeline. There will be other parts of the country that will wrestle with this question as they consider who to vote for, but perhaps nowhere more than right here. And we are here in North Vancouver tonight, but just next door, Vancouver is one of Canada's greenest cities. Mayor Kennedy Stewart is so passionate about the pipeline expansion, that very one we're talking about, that last year he got arrested for protesting it. But as they say, politics makes strange bedfellows. I spoke to him earlier today about pipelines, politics, and how his views now line up. Listen, I want to start with the pipeline because you were, before becoming mayor of Vancouver, the MP for Burnaby South. Yep. You know this debate, and you're continuing to take it up now. How critical do you think that conversation, that debate is during the federal election?
Yeah, I think people in Vancouver have made up their mind, with the vast majority opposed to the pipeline because they know it's not really any benefit to us. I personally don't think it's ever going to get built, but
Why do you say that?
Oh, because it goes through 80 First Nations territories. It only takes really one to have a successful court case to stop it. We've got 6 now being heard in federal court. The city was involved in the federal Court of Appeal case. It's too bad we had to go to all these lengths.
You went so far as to get arrested. You protested and were arrested. So that's, you don't think that the government has made a convincing argument about needing this for the economy, for the national interest of Canada? You say, Vancouver wouldn't get anything out of it, but the country would.
Yeah, and I think that when you're dealing with potential oil spills in your backyard, then you're going to fight back against it. And again, I think the vast majority of Vancouverites have made up their mind on this. So when they're going through this federal election, they know where folks are standing on that. The parties, they're going to look to other issues like housing, like overdose crisis here, and transportation.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those other issues, because you did meet with the Prime Minister. I know you'll probably meet with anyone that wants to meet with you. What about the opioid crisis? You have talked about the downtown east side being the worst you've ever seen.
It is.
And you are looking for some sort of federal health exemption for drugs there.
That's right. The population here is gripped with this problem. We have one person dying a day. It's really where fentanyl hit first in the country, and so we know what works, what doesn't work. The feds have been helpful in terms of stopping overdose deaths, but now we have to move to a safe supply, really to get rid of the poisoned illicit drug supply that we have. And when 80% of your drugs are laced with fentanyl, like you're playing Russian roulette. You inject, you're alive, inject, you're dead.
Go back to housing. Obviously not the only place in the country that it's a big issue. There have been some investments made. What still needs to be done here?
Well, it's all about rental housing here, and I was a bit skeptical about the national housing strategy, and the purchasing part of it isn't really working here, but the loans for our rental housing is working.
Is it weird for you to be, you know where this is going, to be the mayor of Vancouver when you were just, 2 minutes ago an MP for the NDP?
Yeah, it is weird, but I'm really enjoying it. I do think it's nice to have specific problems to solve, and what I'm trying to do is build as many partnerships as I can, so that's why I want to meet with all federal leaders.
So your vote's not baked in, even for you?
I don't think the leaders really care about my vote. I think they care about Vancouver votes. And if you're going to win in this city, it's housing, it's overdose, it's transportation. I feel like we're starting to land things here, but I need more, and I'm not going to stop until we get it.
Understood. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it very much.